Hello everyone, I'm Jessa Angeline Dado. I'm going to present my report based on the topic that was assigned to me. The title of my report is Spain Penitentiary System versus Philippine Correctional System. Current situation and issues, general descriptions, methods, and strategies of prison reformation. So I will start with introduction. The Spanish prison system is ruled by a 1979 law, the first law after our Constitution, and this law is developed with a decree from 1981. The law and the decree are based on the concept of penitentiary treatment directed to re-education so that the observation of the personality of each prisoner should take place in order to identify the best individual path to be reintegrated in the society. The punishment that the convicted receives in the sentence is set temporarily, but it is possible to reduce the stay inside prison if the prisoner behaves according to the prison and the treatment rules. Treatment and security are the two antipodes of the system. Prison staff is devoted to the one or to the other. The warden, who has accomplished a civilian course of studies, is at the top of the entire hierarchy. Spain is a good European example for several reasons. The prison population continues to decline with a reduction in prisoners of 1.3% in 2017, while some establishments are still overcrowded. And the national occupancy rate is estimated at 71.8%. The publication of statistical data is carried out on a regular basis and is easily accessible to the general public. Conditions of detentions are generally considered to be satisfactory, in particular with respect to hygiene, the maintenance of links with family, and the opening up of prisons to external volunteers. However, certain supervisory bodies and society at large warn of deficiencies in terms of access to health care. Objectives. At the end of the discussion of this research paper, we should be able to identify the general description of the Spanish penitentiary system, determine the worst and the most comfortable prisons in the world, analyze the condition of the Spain prisons, understand the methods and strategies of the prison reformation of the Spain prisons, and analyze the current situation and issues of the Philippine correctional system. The Spain penitentiary system, conditions of imprisonment. Admission. At admission, many details concerning the prisoner shall be immediately recorded. For example, the identity of the prisoner, the reason for commitment, etc. And all prisoners shall be informed in writing and orally and in a language they understand of the regulations governing prison discipline, as well as of their rights and duties within prison. The foreign inmates will be informed in addition about the possibility of the application of convention or international treaties signed by Spain for the translation to other countries of condemned persons. Allocation and accommodation. Prisoners shall be allocated as far as possible to prisons close to their homes or places of social rehabilitation. Allocation shall also take into account the requirements of continuing criminal investigations, safety and security, and the need to provide appropriate regimes for all prisoners. As far as possible, prisoners shall be consulted about their initial allocation and any subsequent transfers from one prisoner to another. There is alarm system that enables prisoners to contact the staff without delay only in the centers of new construction. Hygiene. The period determined by the sanitary service according to the procedure established by the directive center will proceed to a complete disinfection, insect disinfection, and rat extermination of the different dependencies of each center. The sanitary services of the penitentiary centers are coordinated and used by the public network of sanitary attention. Clothing and bedding. Each inmates have the right to dress their own clothing, providing that it is appropriate, or he has the right to choose what the prison gives, which has to be correct, and it must be adapted to the climatological conditions and without factor that could concern the dignity of inmate. The clothes are not marked with any penitentiary symbol. Nutrition. The doctor assigned by the administration will provide the inmates a controlled feeding which must be prepared and which must be corresponded in quantity and quality of the dietetic and hygienic norms, bearing in mind that the health, the philosophical and religious convictions. Each inmate will be given drinkable water all the time. Legal advice. The late 90s operates what it is called the Prison Legal Advice Service by agreement between the prison service and the various bar associations in Spain. In addition, prisoners are entitled to request legal aid common except in the case of Catalan prison, where a report will be required prescriptive guidance that highlights the need for such assistance. Otherwise, it will be denied. Contacts with the outside world. Prisoner can make 2 calls per week and unlimited letters sent or received. The law sets a maximum of 5 calls per week, but it cannot be implemented to the large number of inmates. The law established a minimum of 2 visits per week, but this issue is not always easily solved. Many prisoners in Spain have a very low economic level, so they cannot afford travel to prison, much less at this time of crisis. Regime. The Penitentiary Administration designs training programs to develop the inmates' skills, enrich their knowledge, improve their technical or professional capacities, and compensate for its shortcomings. Work. The Department of Justice provides work for prisoners and space while companies contribute machinery and raw materials. The field of vocational training offers a wide variety of courses in order to become familiar with a trade or a profession and serving the needs and demands of the labor market. Exercise and recreation. Those who are in closed regime can have at least 1 hour, but it always depends on each prison regulations. Regulation that is not public and after application at several times to the administration will not possible to obtain. Education. Educational programs, the basic training given to illiterate inmates young and foreign persons, and those who have specific problems to access to education, as well as the promotion and empowerment of any educational activity, is a priority regulated non-university education. Freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, consistent with the constitutional regulation which guarantees freedom, ideological, religious, and cult, and with the international commitments of the state, the penitentiary law guarantees the religious freedom of the inmates, pointing out the duty by the penitentiary administration to facilitate the media so that such freedom rather can be exercised. Information. In any case, for the first prison classification, after the period of observation and interviews at the Department of Revenue, it model a form which determines, among other facts, the offense committed, the sentence imposed, the date in which the responsibility is extinguished, and the date in which the prisoner can begin to apply for prison benefits and probation. Okay. Prisoners' property. The public health does not allow the entrance of perishable goods or foods by those conduits that could alter its characteristics rather and compromising the health of consumers. On the other hand, they have a prison shop, so-called economato, to purchase different products and working as a shop. Release of prisoners. All objects that had been held back at the time of entry are delivered to the person, and the administration will give money for the expenses account. If the released person does not account with his own means, the penitentiary administration will facilitate the ticket of transport or the amount of money needed to reach his residence and to meet rather the first expenditures. Women. The assistance to women specific services of risk and diagnosis of early detection of gynecological cancer and breast in a manner coordinated and legalized to specialized care according to the organization of the corresponding health service indication and follow-up of non-surgical contraceptive methods and advice on other methods of contraception and voluntary determination or termination rather of pregnancy. Juvenile penitentiary system. The state prison administration has no competence concerning juvenile offenders, and this matter is managed by autonomous communities. Infants. According to the penitentiary law, the infants can stay in the institution until 3 years old. Foreign nationals. They may communicate in local appropriate with the diplomatic or consular representatives of their country, or people showing their respective embassies or consulates prior permission of the director of the prison to nationals of countries which do not have diplomatic rather or consular representative, as well as to refugees and stateless persons, shall be granted to communications under the same conditions with a representative of the state that have been in charge of their interest or national or international authority which has the mission of protecting them or with persons in whom those delegate. Ethnic minorities, taking into account different sociological studies which have been conducted on the Spanish prison system, which they show that we can observe, depending on criminal typology, particular ethnic minorities among the prison population. Health. Prisons have own sanitary personnel in order to guarantee the right to health of the people who are in prison. These professionals are responsible for both individualized health care and the application and development of health programs through which such care rather is articulated. Top 5 of the most comfortable and worst prison in the world. Top 5 of the most comfortable prisons in the world. When you think of prison, I bet your thoughts are dominated by images of iron bars, dark hallways, subpar foods, and general overall dismay in the air. But what if I told you not all prisons look like that? In fact, there are some around the world that, despite being legit, are the exact opposite of what I just described. Here are the 5 of the world's most comfortable prisons institutions that have changed how we look at correctional facilities. Bastor Prison, Norway. Located on Bastor Island in Oslofjord, this prison houses a little over 100 inmates who, within the prison complex, enjoy luxuries rather, like tennis, horseback riding, fishing, and sunbathing, with tasteful cottages to house them and lush farms to work on. The prisoners at this minimum security institution probably often forget they are prisoners. HMP Adderwell, Scotland. A designated learning prison, Her Majesty's Prison Adderwell in southern Scotland allots each of its resident inmates 40 weekly hours of productive skill building with a special focus on helping inmates transition back to civilian life in a purposeful and fulfilling manner. Adderwell's 700 prisoners are sure in good hands. Otago Corrections Facility, New Zealand. While its security measures are not taken lightly, Otago provides its inmates with comfortable rooms and attributes great significance to change through skill building and holding classes in light engineering, dairy farming, and cooking, among other things. Otago strives to rehabilitate effectively. Justice Center Leoben, Austria, a quaint European residence for nonviolent offenders. The Justice Center prisons give each of its prisoners a single cell with a private bathroom and kitchenette plus a television. All that and their fully equipped gym, Basketball court and outdoor recreation area would make for a considerably cushy sentence. Aranjuez Prison, Spain, addressing the way that correctional facilities rip families apart. This innovative institution provides for infant rather children to live their first year with their incarcerated parents, equipped with cribs, Disney characters on the walls, and a kids' play area. Aranjuez gives incarcerated parents a chance to experience parenthood despite circumstances rather, and a parent to those too young to comprehend the reality of being imprisoned. Top 5 of the worst prison in the world. Here are the 5 of the world's worst prisons institutions that have changed how we look at correctional facilities. Gitamara Prison, Rwanda, the most crowded prison in the world. Gitarama is home to over 7,000 prisoners in a facility that was built to hold only 400. Most of the inmates are suspects of the Rwandan genocide that took place in 1994. Given the extreme overcrowding, these men and women are forced to stand barefoot on the filthy ground for all hours of the day, causing their foot to rot. Many eventually require amputation, but with only one full-time doctor dedicated to the prison, most prisoners are unable to receive the treatment they need, resulting in half a dozen deaths each day. Camp 22, North Korea. Horyong concentration camp, also known as Camp 22, has been in operation since 1965, but was kept a secret for decades until satellite photography of the facility became public. Camp 22 is one of the estimated 30 concentration camps in North Korea. It is said to hold over 50,000 men, women, and children, since a person's entire family can be arrested for their crime. Prisoners are malnourished, rather, tortured, and subjected to working in fields and mines for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, or the ADX USA, also known as the ADX Florence, Florence AD Max, Supermax, or the Alcatraz of the Rockies. This is the most maximum security prison in the United States. Built in 1994, this facility houses some of the world's most dangerous criminals, including Ted Kaczynski, the Anna bomber, Ramzi Youssef, responsible for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, and Zacarias Massoui, involved in the 9/11 attacks. Rikers Island Prison, USA, made up of 10 separate jails which house men, women, and youth. Rikers Island Prison has a reputation for excessive violence, corruption, and gross mistreatment of its inmates, especially those who are mentally ill. In 2008, after the beating death of 18-year-old Christopher Robinsons, it was found that the inmates responsible were part of the program, a secret society run by prison's guards to have certain inmates exert violence toward other prisoners as a way to maintain order. Mendoza Prison, Argentina. With a population over 3 times its capacity, Mendoza Prison is a madhouse. As many as 5 inmates are crowded into cells that measure only 4 square meters and with no proper sewage system. At the facility, prisoners are forced to use plastic bags and bottles as their washroom. There is also no basic rather medical care. Inmates only see a doctor if they have died. The Philippine Correction System, current situation and issues. Philippine Correctional System. 3 major government functionaries are involved in namely, Department of Justice, Department of the Interior and Local Government, and Department of Social Welfare and Development. Philippine Correctional System. Three major government functionaries are involved. DOJ supervises the national penitentiaries through the Bureau of Corrections, administers the parole and probation system through the Parole and Probation Administration, and assists the President in the grant of executive clemency through the Board and Parole. DILG supervises the provincial, district, city, and municipal jails through the provincial governments and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, respectively. DSWD supervises the regional rehabilitation centers for youth offenders through Bureau of Child and Youth Welfare. Bureau of Corrections, or Bucor. It has evolved with modern penology and has shifted from the traditional view of imprisonment as society's retribution against criminal offenders into one which regards imprisonment as a humanizing and enriching experience. Corrections focus on rehabilitation and regards inmates as patients who need treatment and guidance in order to become productive and responsible members of society upon their release. Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, or the BJMP, also known as the Jail Bureau. BJMP, an agency under the DILG, was created pursuant to Section 60, Republic Act No. 697-513, which took effect on January 2, 1991. It is mandated to direct, supervise, and control the administration and operation of all district, city, and municipal jail nationwide. Parole and Probation Administration. The PPA was created pursuant to Presidential Decree No. 96820 as amended to administer the probation system. Under Executive Order No. 29221, the Probation Administration was renamed as the Parole and Probation Administration and given the added function of supervising prisoners who, after serving part of their sentence in jails, are released on parole or granted conditional pardon. Issues confronting the Philippine corrections system. Overcrowding of certain prison, institutions, or jails. The PNP's consistent and unrelenting drive to get the job done against criminals, terrorists, and those who threaten the peace has resulted in the arrest of thousands of individuals. fragmented setup of the correction system. Authorities say that the present setup of the correction system does not lead to sound management and is not in keeping with the government's machinery. It also results in functional overlaps and diffusion in the conduct of correction and restoration activities. Lack of information technology systems and expertise. Lack of technology to properly maintain inmates' records and proper or process documents for their immediate release is prevailing situation. Lack of or inadequate training has been cited as one of the reasons for the lack of awareness and understanding by some prison, jail officials, and staff on the rights of inmates. Measures undertaken to improve the treatment of offenders. Consistent with its constitutionally declared policy that the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights and its obligations as state party to some, if not most, of the international human rights instruments, the Philippine government has undertaken measures to improve the treatment of offenders. These measures include the Muntinlupa Juvenile Training Center, the establishment of a separate facility for juveniles serving sentence at Bucor has long been a serious concern of the Department of Justice. As stipulated in our laws, youth offenders should be segregated from adult offenders and given different rehabilitation programs that will answer their special needs. Prioritization of projects. The establishment of a drug treatment and rehabilitation center for national prisoners and DOJ intranet were identified as the priority projects, among others, of the department in its development agenda for 2001 to 2005, providing them with other needed services, impedes corrections and rehabilitations programs. Jail Decongestion Program, Upland Decongestion. The agreement aims to help the government decongest jails, unclog court dockets, provide detention prisoners with a fair and speedy trial, provide access to the programs of probation and parole, and lessen expenditures for prisoners' daily maintenance and subsistence. The BJMP has also launched its own Upland decongestion program, which seeks to help inmates avail themselves of the benefits of the applicable laws and such other legally recognized means for their early release from incarceration. Proposed legislation on jail integration. The review committee prepared a draft of a proposed legislation integrating all national prisons and all provincial city or municipal jails and consolidating the functions of Bucor and BJMP under a new bureau to be known as the Bureau of Correctional Services under the DOJ. The bill was prepared several years ago, but Congress has yet to enact the same into law. Full utilization of early release schemes. The full utilization of early release schemes, such as release of recognizance, probation, parole, and executive clemency, has greatly reduced the number of persons in detention, thus reducing the congestion rate of some prison and detention facilities. Increasing public awareness of the plight of inmates. It educates the community on the situation prevailing in prisons or jails and making the people aware that prisoners are human beings that should be accorded full respect for their human rights. It also encourages public participation in the resocialization and public acceptance rather, and the reintegration of prisoners into society as productive and law-abiding citizens after service of sentence in prison. Conclusion. The improvement of the correction system and the inmate's successful reintegration into the mainstream of society is not the sole responsibility of the corrections pillar. The other pillars of the Philippine criminal justice system, law enforcement, prosecution, judiciary, and community must also do their share rather. An offender must be afforded his or her rights throughout the different stages of the criminal justice system, from the commission of the offense to investigation and apprehension to prosecution, trial. The community, in particular, plays a significant role in the administration of criminal justice as it functions even before the commission of the offense. Failure of the community to prevent the commission of the offense means an added responsibility of rehabilitating and conviction, and finally, punishment and correction. Also, after going through the entire system and after release, either by complete satisfaction of penalties or on probation or parole, they either rejoin the community and lead a peaceful life or commit another crime and go through the criminal justice system again. Greater community involvement in the treatment of offenders must, therefore, be encouraged. The Philippine government, despite many difficulties, has taken and continues to take concrete steps towards the improvement of the prisons or jail conditions and the treatment of offenders. But the government cannot do this alone. It needs the cooperation rather and the active involvement of all sectors in our society, media, academe, business, etc. Prison reforms can only be achieved through the active involvement of all members of society. Each one has a responsibility in making these reforms possible. Decent decent and humane prison conditions can be realized, and prisoners can be successfully rehabilitated if every sector of society will work together. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.